because he's going to make this team more disciplined. And like Jason said with the Billy Bean thing, they need to get high IQ guys because they make dumb plays in big situations. I mean, they play hard, they play competitive football, but they just make dumb plays, and they need someone with discipline like a Jim Harbaugh. Otherwise, this team won't be anywhere. They'll still be at the bottom unless if they get a big-time coach.
All the high-Q guys on free agency, why in the world would you go to Oakland? You see guys from Seattle who would rather go to Jacksonville than the Oakland Raiders. Red Bryant, he's a Jaguar. And plenty of other guys, they don't mind going to teams that are bottom feeders as long as, the organization is not run by a bunch of monkeys.
Back to
was that controversial?
No, it's not.
No, I'm kidding. No.
Trying to say that that Carr is a franchise quarterback might be the right thing to say because he's a homeboy. He played in Fresno State. He is a and I've talked to people who are from the 559. If you're listening, you know who you are.
Yeah.
The 559 is an area. It's made of a lot of cities near Fresno. It's not the best not culturally rich, but like wealthy area. He played there. He has already a presence in Middle California, in that area. He has the makings to be a franchise QB there because he's improving, and I firmly believe he will be the franchise QB there. He's a QB. He's not a huge name. He's not Carson Palmer or whatever. He's not a big name, but he can be a big name. He can work hard. He's already working with garbage receivers already, and he's gonna learn how to make them good. And once that happens, 2 to 3 years now, like I said, 13. If they have accumulated 13 wins from the 2015 season and the 2016 season, and when in September of 2017, when that season starts, they'll have a positive outlook. They'll have a coach. If it's horrible, that'd be great. But they'll have a coach. Their defense will still be as good. They're going to continue to build that defense. They can do something like what the Bears did. They made the playoffs strictly on defense. Rex Grossman wasn't that good of a quarterback. So
Thomas Jones was pretty darn good running the football for him.
Yeah.
That's it.
So
you don't have to have a quarterback. I know the whole mantra is that, but you take a look at some of the teams that are in the playoffs right now, or what could have been in the Niners. Not a very good passing offense. Some of the teams that are currently in the postseason right now, Cincinnati's horrendous if they didn't have an A.J. Green to help them in the passing game.
Yeah.
And you take a look at some of the other guys, 10-6 Baltimore. I think that passing offense is atrocious. You don't need to have a quarterback. I know many people do, but I don't think so.
I agree with you. I just think
a quarterback obviously helps.
Yeah, I think people see, Brady and Manning are at the top of the AFC, so we need to get that guy. I think that's what people see.
Get the guy. Why?
Go ahead.
You know that it doesn't take 1 year to solve everything.
Yeah.
Let's look at the Texans. They could have made the playoffs.
Yeah.
They had the best quarterback to play for them was Ryan Fitzpatrick. This guy is smarter at hitting the books than throwing a football.
Let's just say Harvard isn't exactly a football powerhouse.
Yeah, and Fitzpatrick was decent enough. He had a great game against Tennessee a couple weeks ago, but he's not a playoff quarterback. He's not a quarterback that can take down teams like the Broncos or the Patriots. But they made it just because of J.J. Watt.
What's amazing is they did it without Clowney.
Oh, yeah.
Could you imagine next year Clowney in there? Another year with DeAndre Hopkins getting better?
The jury is still out on Clowney for me. I don't know if he was really the correct choice. We could have had Manziel.
But I think he's a better selection than Manziel.
Yes.
If I was to take one guy, number 1 overall, it would be Clowney by far and away. Because he's an actual player.
That's fair to say.
Manziel can't even be a backup for the Cleveland Browns on a quarterback. Clowney can start on that defensive line. That's amazing.
Well, I hope they'll have at least 40 sacks between each other next season.
Well, what's amazing is that I think the most intriguing storylines are about football teams that are not playoff ball clubs. We'll get going to that, of course. But first and foremost, I would like to touch, and Cameron Sadeghi joining us, of course, about the NBA. You look at the East. I just want to talk real quick about them.
Here we go.
Oh,
here we go. Cavaliers are the number 5 seed in the East. Just figure that out if the playoffs were to start today. And my personal belief is they very easily could be a top 3 team in that conference when it's all said and done.
No, I don't think so right now.
You don't think so?
And everybody's blaming the head coach David Blatt, and I don't think it's his fault, really. I mean, it's his first year, and I think he is a great coach. But, I mean, yeah, everybody talks about the Detroit thing too, but I think LeBron
Cavs lost by 23 the other night to Detroit.
LeBron doesn't trust Blatt, and I don't know why. But I personally think the best teams in the East have to be Toronto, Washington, and Chicago. Those are the best teams.
What about Atlanta?
Good, but I think Atlanta. I just worry about them playoff time.
I would like to get your take on the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
I personally thought that Derrick Rose should sit a month. Why are you playing a guy when you're going to make the playoffs anyways? It's the same with the discussion with like a David Lee for Golden State.
Yeah, I mean, but he has to get some rhythm, though, and they need to get that high spot because it's going to be tough catching Toronto, Atlanta, and Washington. But
could you imagine that Toronto fan base? Oof, it was crazy last year.
Yeah.
That was one of the most passionate fan bases I've seen in a long time.
Genuine and authentic. I think Toronto, to me, they're the team to beat, and I don't think – and then people can say, oh, Toronto, they don't have the experience and everything. But let's just look at the few past games. I went to the Raptors and Clippers game, and they put on a show in the fourth quarter.
Oh, yeah.
They were unselfish, and their next man up mentality. The Raptors are the real deal. And then in high altitude against Denver, they really executed play after play. And Kyle Lowry should be in the MVP discussion.
Well, after they lost to the Cavs, it's Toronto that's won 8 of their last 9. They're looking real hot right now.
Let me talk about the sports culture in Toronto real quick.
Yeah.
You have the Maple Leafs, who haven't been to the Stanley Cup Final since 1960 something, right? And you haven't seen the Blue Jays haven't won anything since the 90s, and now the Raptors have finally rose up and are finally playing well. This is a desperate city that needed to be reunited with a good sports team, and the Raptors have brought that game.
I love the Raptors. They're just they resemble everything that's great about sports. To be honest with you.
Oh, we have a guest today?
Yeah, we do. Actually, okay, you talk about greatness in sports, and this is exactly what greatness is not. As we bring in Miles Walker here alongside Cameron Sadeghi, Jason Caroline, and Robert Dieters. And Miles, the New York Giants are a perplexing unit, if you will, led by a head coach that in and of himself is in an identity crisis. You have a quarterback who can't seem to throw to the right team, and a running game that has been frankly non-existent. Miles, this football team either thinks themselves as a Super Bowl champion or a top 10 drafting football team. Your thoughts?
Well, although we had one of our worst seasons that we had in a while, I used our worst
since 2 years ago.
Before. Oh, word. Okay, sorry. But when I look at this team, I still don't see a 6-10 team. Maybe that's partially my bias, but when I see this team and I see some of the games they've lost, there were a good 4 games on their schedule they could have easily won.
Yeah.
When I look at it, their second game against Arizona, they lost 25-14. They were up for most of the game, and then Manning just went back to the Manning of old. Against the both times against they played the Cowboys, they should have won. The Philly game they just lost yesterday, they should have won. I mean, yes, this is a bad season. We dealt with a lot of injuries. The most significant, of course, Victor Cruz losing our cornerback for most of the year, also. But I mean, I look at this team and I'm still optimistic for next year. I think this team can still make the playoffs next year. I still have a lot of confidence.
Okay, so
I have a quick question, Miles. What do you think of Rashad Jennings? I mean, he's had his injuries, but besides that, when he's healthy, do you think this guy could really be the future running back for the New York Giants?
I think he's a good running back. I do not think he's our future. Between him and Williams, I'd rather take my money on Williams. I think he has more potential as a running back. I think Jennings is a better running back right now. But I think between the two, I would bank more on Williams. I think he's going to be the type of running back you want to have for the future.
would you agree that talent is not an issue when it comes to the Giants?
Can you say it again, sorry?
Would you agree that talent is not an issue when it comes to the Giants' problems?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we still need we've never had a very good defense Like even when we won the Super Bowl in 2007 and 2011, we never were known for our defense. I mean, it wouldn't hurt until we would get a little bit of better defense. But besides that, when it comes to talent, that's not the Giants' issue.
Well, let me touch on one thing real quick to get your impressions on it. You talk about this team being talent-laden, being, I guess, as far as the skill goes, ready for a Super Bowl. But let me read off some of the scores of the New York Giants when they play against playoff teams. We'll start with the first game of the year. On the road against Detroit, they lost 35-14. Next up, home against Arizona, 25-14 loss. End up losing 27-0 against Philadelphia, a loss against Dallas, against the Colts by 16, 38-17 loss to Seattle. And this is a team that when they face off against a playoff ball club, I think they're something like 0-8 or 0-9. Against all the playoff teams, they lose. Your thoughts?
Well, without a doubt, they simply could not beat a playoff. They would play them close for probably most of the first half, and then all of a sudden, like 3 turnovers would happen. Like that describes the Seattle game. It was tied 17-17. They were looking good. All of a sudden, it's 38-17. I'm like, what? It just happens all of a sudden. Like, I think this also comes with a little more maturity. This is a lot more of a younger Giants team that we've had in the past. A lot less experience. The most experienced guy right now is Manning, and before Manning used to be one of the young guns. So, a little more experience they could also use. They need to take a step back sometimes and just realize where they are, realize the situation, and not make so many stupid mistakes, because literally that would have saved them another five wins on their season, I'm pretty sure.
So, Miles, I have another question for you. Does Eli do better or worse in 2015?
I don't think he can get a whole lot worse than that. Well, I will give you this. Eli did have less interceptions than, I believe, Peyton Manning.
Oh, yes, he did. And
Peyton Manning had more picks, yeah.
Yes. Manning didn't really have that bad of a year. When you look at his stats, it's like 30 touchdowns, around like 14 receptions. Yeah, 14 receptions. Threw for about 4,000 yards. He had a good statistical year.
Yeah, Manning threw for 4,400 yards, 30 TDs, and 14 picks, which is far above his career average.
Oh, yeah, he had a great year. So I think he's going to throw for maybe a few more picks. I can still see him throwing for around the same amount of touchdowns, because remember, he's not only going to have Beckham next year, he's also going to have Victor Cruz.
Right.
Like, yeah, we have to remember that. Like, Cruz is he's no slouch. That's a pretty darn good receiver, if you ask me.
Well, this is a man in Eli Manning that's thrown at least 14 picks over the last 5 years, and 2 times he's thrown at least 25 interceptions. So this is a man that is turnover prone, not to mention the fumbles that he's had over his career as well. Moving forward, Eli Manning, whether he's the answer or not, what do the Giants do in the offseason to get better?
Firstly, make sure, their offensive line is pretty good this year. Like, there's some holes in the offensive line, but it wouldn't be my primary focus. I would say focus on your stupid secondary. My goodness, please focus on your secondary.
Right.
I do not enjoy watching our cornerbacks get burned for the entire game. I don't think we need a great defense to make the playoffs. We need a decent defense. And this year, our defense was far below average.
Yeah, Miles Walker joining us here on the National Sports Radio Station, just trying to get a spectrum on just how bad the Giants were. And yes, they were bad.
All right.
Hey.
So the 4th worst defense in the NFL. I actually didn't know just how bad they were. Secondary may be a cause for concern, but how do you replace that dominant defensive line led by Strahan early on in the 2000s?
I don't know, man. I think you have to pray and hope that there's some good draft picks open for you. They have a good draft pick in 9. If I was them, I would not use another offensive weapon. They have a good enough offense. Please just focus on your stupid defense. It's really not that difficult. And
wow,
you're at it.
Humble as can be, Miles Walker. Lasting thoughts on the playoff spectrum. We'll talk on that in just a moment here. There are currently a couple of front runners. I think we can all agree that the Patriots and Seahawks are among the most favorited teams entering the postseason. Who do you think is going to really make a name for themselves during this playoff run?
I can see the Bengals having a good playoff run. Let's see, they're gonna play the Colts.